Hello, I'm David Hunt, and welcome to my little section of Bent TV. Oh, I love doing this section. Now, my guest today already is an 18-year-old. She has achieved amazing things, and her journey is incredible. And we're going to talk about her amazing journey. And she's more than 18. I think she's 19 and a half nowadays, but we'll get to that a little bit later. She has a daughter. We'll be talking about her daughter. She has lived in New Zealand, a trans woman, engaged to the most craziest but adorable Irish lady you could imagine, and also has a voice on Joy 94.9 during the daytime. Jocelyn Bishop, hello.
Hi, David.
Now, 18 or 19 and a half? What is it?
Look, I don't know. You know how a woman never tells, but I'm starting to be more honest about it these days because people go, oh, really? You don't look 22. So,
Oh, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, age is one of those strange things, isn't it? Yeah, and you get once you get to a certain age, you don't care. Well, let's
I
talk.
can barely remember. I can't count that high anymore.
Well, you didn't even know you were dressed when you had to fill out a form just a minute ago.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But let's start. What were you like as a kid growing up? Obnoxious, I could imagine.
No. Oh, well, actually, I was. In primary school, I was obnoxious. I was frequently told by other kids, oh, you think you're so smart? And I genuinely did. I was one of those kids. I learnt to read very early. And I had a wider vocabulary than the other kids at a young age. And I loved libraries. My mother was an early education teacher. So,
Okay.
my education was very good in the early years. And, I kind of thought, well, either these kids are dumb or I'm pretty smart. So I went with I must be pretty smart. I got to high school and was like, oh, I'm not that smart after all. I'm just average, normal. So I got rid of that notion. What was your question?
Yeah, like what were you like as a kid? So like
Yeah, look, I was friendly. After that, I would hang around with more nerdy types, but
things haven't changed.
they were easier to make friends with. I did radio at school. I was part of the computer lab at school. I did the musicals at school. I was part of the student political team.
Musicals played a fairly big part in your life, and singing.
Yes, yeah, it definitely has.
And you still sing a little bit now as well. We'll get to that. But what was it about musical?
I've always really enjoyed singing, thanks to my mum indoctrinating me in the ways of ABBA from a very young age, and the music of ABBA and the harmonies. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Yep.
So I've always really enjoyed that kind of thing. I went in all the musicals at school because I just wanted to see what it'd be like to perform, and I loved it. I could forget I was somebody else on stage, so it didn't matter how awkward I might feel as a young kid. Once I'm on stage, I'm somebody else.
You are.
And it was just so much fun.
Now, all of a sudden, you would have started dating, and you found a partner.
I did have a fair few girlfriends at school. Now, I was presenting as male then, and I was a good listener, and I always got along much better with girls than I did with boys. So, girls found me appealing once they got to know me. So I quite a few times I'd be talking to girls about issues they were having with their boyfriends or something like that, and then they'd dump their boyfriends to go out with me.
Whoa.
Because I was just so nice.
What about sex life? Were you active as a like late teens, early 20s?
Yeah. I think about 17. I was 17 when that happened. Yeah, I was quite active in a committed relationship at the time. I did mess around with a male friend of mine, but that was sort of before I had a girlfriend or anything like that. And I didn't really, it was sort of always in the back of my mind, but it never crossed my mind that it was possible to pursue that to be gay and to have a boyfriend or anything like that. I just didn't occur to me that that was possible. But it was still something that I knew was part of me, but I'd have to keep that bottled up.
Yep. What about because you've got a daughter?
Hmm.
Did you get married?
Yeah, I did. So I went to Bible college because I'd grown up in a Christian environment. I worked for a Christian humanitarian aid organization. And, all this stuff people talked about having faith. And I thought, I don't really understand what that is. So I went to theological college to try and get more of an understanding of it. And I still thought, all right, there's a disconnect here. Faith is something that's not intellectual. And
Oh, a lot of people would argue that.
well, intellectually, I felt this is all make believe stuff, and I don't know how to connect this faith stuff with what I understand about the physical world. And so, still, it was sort of like trying to integrate two different thought systems that I couldn't make mesh for me. While I was at Bible college, I was doing some singing and um, some performances and things for some events, and there was a girl there selling tickets, and we got chatting after one of the rehearsals one day, and we just kind of liked hanging out together. And before too long, we were going out, and after 3 months, we were engaged,
Yay.
and about a year later, we were married. My daughter came along probably about 5 years into that marriage
Wow,
because
that's a fair while. Yeah.
yeah, well, I was doing youth ministry type work and all that kind of thing. She'd become a teacher and she had a scholarship from the government, which meant she had to work in rural schools. So we ended up moving because I had a disagreement with the church I was working at. I believed that outreach meant one thing and they thought it meant grabbing people in and putting them in the church. And
Oh.
I thought it meant taking people from the church and spreading them out and having them do things for people without anything in return.
Yeah.
So yeah, that clashed, and I parted ways with that particular organisation. And yeah, I ended up in the country. I couldn't get any work other than driving taxis. And
Wow.
during that time, I went to TAFE and did a diploma of community welfare. Absolutely loved it. That took 2 years, and then I ended up working for the Department of Child Protection. Wow, that was very much eye opening.
Yeah.
And it was in that sort of changeover time that I came out as gay to my wife. At that point, we had a 1-year-old daughter. We tried to make it work for about 6 months, and it really didn't. Um,
And was she fine with it?
she was angry to begin with.
Yeah, that's
But
understandable. It's what happens.
yeah, because she felt like she'd been duped.
Yep.
Like I should have known.
Mm.
And yet I married her knowing full well that I wasn't sexually attracted
Well,
to her.
hold on. When did you start discovering it? Was it before you got married? Or no?
Well, I'd always considered myself bisexual. My first sexual encounters were with boys. But as a Christian, I thought that's not something
Yep.
that I can make part of my life.
Yep.
So I thought, well, I'm attracted to girls, I'm attracted to boys. I must be bisexual, but I am only going to pursue relationships with girls. And so when we decided to get married, I distinctly remember sitting down and having a conversation with her very early on when we were just still getting to know each other. And I talked about that. And I said, if when I'm to get married, I know that, temptation to stray kind of thing is going to come from women and going to come from men. But I don't intend to stray. I'm committed to being married.
Yep.
And I don't think she remembered that because when I came out as gay, she was shocked. She was annoyed. But then over time, as we sort of talked it through, she was okay with us splitting up because she felt, well, it's not my fault. I don't have the bits that you're interested in. There's nothing I can do about that. It's just you. And, I'm a bit upset that we've gone through, we had planned a life and that's not going to happen now.
Yep.
But I'm also glad that it's not my fault.
Yep.
And so we've remained friends
Okay.
ever since, and
Okay.
especially since we co-parented my daughter in the very early years. It was very much a 50-50.
Right.
Um, she breastfed, I didn't, but I would bottle feed, I was going to say pumped milk. And if she would go to work, and then I would look after the baby.
When did the separation happen, as in you're like you moving away?
Probably about 8 months after I came out to her.
Right.
I sort of did a couple of nights I'd stay at a friend's house, which was closer to where I worked, and then the rest of the week I'd come back and I'd look after the baby, or the toddler, and yeah. But we decided that we needed to, if we're going to separate, we needed to do it while she was still under the age of 3,
Yeah.
so that she wouldn't have memories of us living together.
Okay.
So she tells me now that she was 8 years old before she discovered that it's actually normal for mum and dad to live in the same house. She thought mum and dad lived at separate houses,
Okay.
and you travel between the two.
Isn't
That was just normal for
interesting?
her.
Yeah.
So there was no trauma
Yeah.
involved in our
Wow.
separation.
Wow.
And we've always had a good relationship. We've always talked.
Yeah.
She's tried to play us off against each other, but that's never worked. So we always provided security and consistency.
Yeah.
And I still have a great relationship with my daughter and a very good relationship with my ex-wife.
Fantastic. New Zealand. Why did you go there?
6 months after I separated and moved out, I met a guy. Ended up moving to Melbourne with him from where I was in Warrnambool before that. He was from New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
He was a trans guy, but he was living stealth, shall we say. So I knew he was trans. His family knew he was trans. Nobody else did. He lived his life as a cis man, and looked the part, and that was fine. And he got sick, had a heart attack, discovered that he had very aggressive diabetes.
Oh.
He had been having a lot of sugar for a long time, all throughout his life. That was his vice, sugary foods, lollies, all that kind of stuff. And so it had been building up, and he had no idea. I now know that from some of his behaviours, he had ADHD, and I think his self-medication was sort of sugar, as that sort
Okay.
of, stimulant sort of thing to help with the ADHD. Mine was caffeine, coffee. And anyway, he got quite sick, couldn't work, and because he was from New Zealand, he had, instant permanent residency here, but wasn't eligible for a pension or
Pensions.
anything
Yep.
like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
So he had to move back to New Zealand, and he said to me, "Look, you can come if you want, but you don't have to. I don't expect you to, pick up sticks and move to another country." And at that stage, we were told he had 3 to 5 years left to live
Whoa.
because of how aggressive the diabetes was.
Whoa.
And if he didn't take the medication, it would be quicker. If he was medicated and followed a regime, he might get 10 years, something like that. He decided he wasn't going to follow the medication. He tried it for a while, and
Oh.
his quality of life was awful. He had no energy. He was feeling consciously nauseous, and he just didn't want a bar of it. He would rather enjoy life,
Ah.
know that he was going to go out quick
Yeah.
and go
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
quick,
Yeah.
and that was what he wanted.
Good on him. But so you did move to New
I
Zealand.
did move to New Zealand with him on the understanding that we would get married over there.
Yep.
At that point, the point when we moved, New Zealand had same-sex marriage. Australia did not. While we were over there, things didn't pan out quite the way he was expecting, and so we had to, make a life for ourselves in New Zealand. It was really quite difficult to get started. We were both
Yeah.
on unemployment benefits. I got trained to work in vineyards, and I had to do that to maintain my job seeker benefit.
Yep.
Worked there in freezing cold conditions in winter, wrapping vines and all that sort of stuff. It's an experience I'm so glad I had, but I really never wish to repeat.
No. But life experiences are all good.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And so what happened for you to move back? Did he die?
He did. We split up about 6 months before COVID hit. He decided that he wanted to pursue a polyamorous relationship with another gay couple. And we'd worked out at that point that we really weren't compatible as a couple.
Okay.
But we were quite close still. So I kept living in the house. The other couple moved in.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden there was a flare up. Neither of us realised that there was domestic violence in that relationship.
Oh.
And there was a flare up one night at our house, and I just said, "That's it. I'm leaving. I don't feel safe here. I'm getting out of here. I'll be here tonight. I'm packing a bag and I'm moving in with friends, and that's it." We stayed split up. He did attempt to take his life as a result of that violence that night. And he rang me the next morning and said a couple of things about, there's an envelope for you which talks about it's got bank details and PIN numbers in case you need it.
Oh.
And I kind of thought that it sounds like he's planning to end his life. And we'd had an agreement that if his illness was so bad that he wanted to end his life, that I would allow that to happen. But I knew that this was because of the fighting and the argument with the other people. It wasn't because of his illness. It was just because he felt small and afraid. And so I called the ambulance and all that sort of stuff and saved his life. He regrets that. He doesn't blame me. He didn't blame me for it, but he said he wishes he hadn't answered the phone when I rang in that morning. But I couldn't live with myself if I hadn't.
No, of course. And were you still there when he died?
Oh, I was still in New Zealand. Yep. He put together, so he recovered from that, but he put together a celebration of life party. Because he knew he was getting sicker and sicker. He'd already had a leg amputated because of gangrene and all that sort of stuff that was happening. Yeah. And he was getting less and less mobile. And so he had this big party and he asked me to contribute and help out with that, and I did. And a lot of his friends and my friends came along and sort of celebrated his life as it had been. And about a week after that, I got a phone call from his sister saying that he'd gone to hospital the night before and died.
Oh, wow.
Overnight.
Wow.
Immediately, I was devastated because we were still friends, even though we weren't together. But I was also relieved for him that, life hadn't been easy.
No.
And he hadn't wanted it to get to that point. Yeah. But I had already decided at that point, because of COVID, that I wanted to come home because my daughter was here, my parents were here, and they were getting older. And, I didn't want to miss out on time with them. And, the whole world was shutting down. It was difficult. And I thought, I can't be in this country when they're in there, and
you can't move.
Yeah. And so as soon as I heard that there was a window opening up where you could travel from New Zealand to Australia, because New Zealand was a green zone, I took it. Got some money together, got the tickets and was going. So he already knew that I was leaving.
Yep.
But he died while I was still there. I got to help plan the funeral, the memorial. Yeah, it went the way he wanted. He was remembered as he was, as a man. His family were very good about that. He wasn't dead named. He wasn't misgendered. It was a lovely service, and I was one of the pallbearers.
Yep.
And I'm really glad that I got to do that. I got quite a bit of closure from that relationship, from everything with that. So it's been a good experience. But then I got back to Melbourne. Visited relationships with family. And of course, then I experienced the Melbourne lockdown.
Right. But hold on, let's move away from that and let's hone in on your decision to be a trans person. When did that penny drop? Was it back here, or was it still when you were in New Zealand?
Back in New Zealand, my eldest, I'm going to say nibbling, which is the non-gendered word for a niece or nephew. So my eldest nibbling changed their pronouns on their Facebook profile to they, them, and changed their name from what it had been to a word, a name that could be male, could be female. So
Yeah.
it was gender ambiguous name. I thought, oh, this is really interesting. So I sent them a message and said, look, I noticed that your pronouns and name have changed. I don't know if you're doing this to support a non-binary friend of yours or whether it's you. If it's you, I'd like to say that I support you 100%. And I know that's going to be difficult in your family to have that support. So if you need anything, I'm in your corner. You know, I'm the queer member of the family. I want to look after other queer members of the
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
So I'm here for you. And they sent me back a lovely message saying, thanks so much. Yeah, it has been difficult. Dad was quite oppositional to it. And yeah, it's them, they're trans non-binary. And I went, oh, trans non-binary. I didn't think non-binary was trans, because in my mind, trans meant transition. It doesn't. It just means other. So yeah, I started researching and finding out a lot more about what it means to be non-binary. And when I was in a lockdown here back in Melbourne, I did a lot of research, went down the YouTube rabbit hole, and I thought, this is really cool. I like the idea of being non-binary. You know, kind of wish I was, but you know, you can't make yourself something just because you wish you were.
Yep.
And then I was watching one video and they had a list of how do you know if you're non-binary, and number 4, if you wish you were non-binary, you probably are. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'm like, what? I can be? Really?
So just explain in your mind for our audience what is non-binary.
So non-binary is neither male nor female, not identifying as one of those binary genders. It's either one or the other. It's a different option. And I have struggled all my life with feeling like I have to apologize for being male. I've always gotten along with women, with females better. And, you know, whenever men do bad things, as they sometimes do, you know, I always thought, well, that's not me. I want to apologize for that. You know, I would like to say I'm a feminist because I believe that women have a lot to contribute and don't get the opportunities to. But, you know, as a man, I have that male privilege and I don't think I have the right to express, you know, myself as a feminist. But so non-binary said to me that, oh, wait, all right, I'm not a woman. I know I'm not a woman, but I don't have to be a man either. I can stop feeling the pressure to be masculine, you know, because I've never been into sports. I've never been into, oh, hey, mate, how's it going? I've never been that ochre blokey kind of person. So I thought, well, I'll start dropping off some of the masculine things that I've taken on as who I'm supposed to be.
Yep.
And I'll forget about what society expects of me and I'll just find out who I actually am.
Yep.
And I started doing that and I discovered more and more female things coming in, and yeah, I identify as a woman now.
Exactly. And you're going through the process too, aren't you? You know, like of changing to a woman.
Yes, I've been on hormone replacement therapy for about 18 months now. So yes, I grew these myself. And yeah, it's changed my life. It's changed how I feel about myself. My brain feels like it's mine.
Yep.
You know, not like I'm trying to figure out how to use it anymore. It
Yep.
fits with me, how I understand
Yeah.
myself.
Now, on that journey, you've met your partner,
Yeah, I
and
have.
you're engaged and
Yep.
planning marriage,
Mhm.
which I've offered my place, but you know, like 15 people, you know, like, and you're going, oh no, it's not big enough.
I know, we've got 16 friends, David.
So you know, like, tell us about that journey.
That has been wonderful.
She's a crazy Irish character.
She is. She fills my life with joy on a daily basis.
What's her name?
Jennifer. Jennifer, yeah. Look, we met marching with Joy at Midsummer Pride a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
We had met on a Zoom thing. We knew each other by sight and by name, but we weren't really friends at that point. We just knew each other. But we got chatting afterwards at the Pride Centre, and we got to know each other. And then she invited me to go to Dalesford for a day trip to go to Chill Out. And I thought, I've always wanted to go to Chill Out. Sure, it's a day trip. I'll get to know someone. I might get a new friend out of this.
The interesting thing with the two of you, you've really embraced what your journey now and where you're going with who you're becoming. You've really become part of that community, haven't you?
Yeah.
And it must be so rewarding for you because I see you I'm friends with both you and Jennifer, and I look at you and and hear all the stories and where you go to and what you do. You sing in a choir now.
Yeah, a
as
trans
well.
and gender diverse choir. Yep.
Right. So what does it mean to you now? In 25 words or less, because we're running out of time. Because your story has been just wonderful. What does it mean to you to have this community with a community within a broader community, the broader LGBTIQ plus community?
It's like home because I've always felt like I never fitted anywhere in my life, and now I know where I fit. It's comfortable. Trans people are wonderfully diverse, fabulously interesting. We've done a lot of introspection. We know who we are, and so we all have so much to offer. And when I get together with other trans people, it's always an enriching experience for me. And I know that, in this world, in this day and age, sometimes it's difficult to be trans. And I feel like compared to others,
Difficult?
I've had an easy run of it.
Yeah.
And so I like to do what I can to, if I can pave the way for others, if I can be an out loud, proud trans woman publicly. That's why I have a show. I do a daytime shift on Joy, and I do an interview show, and I bring trans people in and we talk about their lives through the music that's been important to them. And I just love showcasing positive transness, and so that people can see how great it is, and we're not a threat to anyone, not at all.
I have found out so much more about you than I already knew.
Nice.
Thank you for this chat today. And maybe there'll be a part 2 down the track.
Sorry, I do talk a lot. There might have to be.
Your journey from here to wherever it's going. It would be interesting one to follow up in a couple of years' time, because I'm sure I'll be still hanging around here doing this. Gavin, maybe I will. Jocelyn Bishop, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
You're so welcome, David. It's been a pleasure.
I'm David Hunt. I'm going now because my time is up. I've spoken. No, I haven't spoken too much. She's spoken too much. See you later. We'll be back next month. Well, I'll be back next month. Ciao.